I think a company is a startup is a startup until it exits in any way. That means gets purchased by another company, IPOs, gets public.
But he's been very clear since he bought Twitter that he's been wanting to transform it into his original vision of X.com.
And he took over the Twitter username @X and @XAI, which were...
I knew about Oppenheimer before, but everyone knows about Barbie. So it's not surprising. That being said, the movie's amazing. Go watch Oppenheimer. I have to go see Barbie now, I guess. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Mike, and good morning to our listeners.
Yeah, so we're here for another episode of Startup Talks podcast put on by Institut Innovation Gatineau. Today, we don't have our dear colleague Soufiane with us. He's on vacation. I think he deserves it. So we're not going to bother him. And I thought that today we could do this one in English since the last one was in French.
No problem at all. We're fully bilingual here, so...
Yeah. So today we're going to do it, a little differently. We've pulled up some tidbits of news from this, like, happening in startups, both regionally and around the world. And I thought we could go through some of those, some interesting discussions that can be had. So...
Prior, can I just say one thing? And on this episode, I'm wearing my dad hat.
Yeah.
And the reason being is that, shout out to all the dadpreneurs and mompreneurs out there. That's the first thing I want to say. Like, shout out to you guys. And I want to say that...
You guys are doing the good work.
You're doing the hard work.
How much have you slept in the last week?
The last week, the last 2 days, 0. And the last week, 4 hours per night. It's rough. I have 2 little babies at home, under 18 months. Both of them. So it's been rough. So I just wanted to say, like, that's the reason I'm wearing, casual Friday, but this dad hat as well.
Well, I got to give it to you. You still came in and you still were working on some technical stuff yesterday.
Correct.
We broke some barriers. What was that term that you said to me just now? Regression, reversion?
Sleep regression.
Right.
Regression happens at different times in a baby's life. Say 4 months, 2 months, 4 months, could be 8 months. It all depends. My eldest, who's 16 months, about 17 months soon, she is feeling it right now. She's waking up at 2, 3 a.m. Full of energy, like it was like a 7 a.m. wake-up call, and it's really rough on the parents. So again, shout out to all the entrepreneurs and startup founders that have kids out there and doing the good deeds.
Yeah, I mean, startups, just to tie it back to the subject, go through similar experiences where things can be going well for a number of months, years, and then you can go through a period of regression, and you got to figure things out. So, anyways, thanks for actually showing up and being here despite being super tired. I thought that we'd kick it off with some news out of the region. 2 Ottawa-based startups, Mindbridge and Solink, which are both... they're both AI type startups, and they just raised $60 million each from international investors and some Canadian investors, from what I see. So let's talk about that. I mean, I think it's great that we've got some local startups that are making waves. Do you know these companies?
So I know one of them, Mindbridge. I'm not sure if I know the other one, but it does point out the fact that are we seeing companies raise a significant amount of money more than during the pandemic, or is it back to pre-pandemic amounts and evaluations of startups? Are we going there? I'm not sure yet. Again, one of our startups also at Innovation Gatineau raised, not to that same level, but $1 million. And I'm not going to mention which one because it's still on the private side. But they were really happy to be able to raise that amount of money. And they said that it was very unique to their situation, given the pandemic, given the situation, the valuation. So again, are we back to pre-pandemic VC evaluations, angel investments, or not?
It's hard to say. Obviously, these 2 examples are quite different. I mean, the 2 that I mentioned have been around for close to 10 years, and I think Solink even longer than that. But everyone seems to be saying that the venture capital market is like cooled down a little bit. So like valuations aren't as high. That being said, there is one thing in common between these three startups. They all have AI.
Correct.
They have AI solutions. And as we know, those are commanding higher valuations and more interest from investors these days. So no surprises there. Could be a fluke. But I think if you are an AI startup raising money, I think you'll get something of a premium and a little bit more interest from the investors.
Hopefully it's not just a buzz word that's being thrown around by startups.
I think it totally is. like in general, I think there's some profound work that's being done on certain aspects of artificial intelligence. But we had this experience. We had, we've been approached by a lot of AI so-called startups in the last little while, and are they really doing something innovative, or are they just wrapping ChatGPT? Right. So we have to watch out for that. And I totally understand using ChatGPT as like a basis for testing some hypotheses, right? Because
MVP prototyping.
Yeah. Like you're using, you're basically piggybacking on a pretty strong technology, but you're bringing something unique, like you're applying it to a certain vertical. That could be interesting, but eventually you're going to have to not rely on another platform.
That's correct.
Because you'll have a tremendous amount of platform risk. The good news is I'm hearing that the large language models are more and more becoming commoditized. Like there's like an open source one floating around the internet that is quite powerful, on the order of OpenAI's models. And so I think this is a good thing, because it'll make AI, which is such a powerful technology, more accessible to the average entrepreneur, and not just in the hands of like massive monopolistic tech companies. But we'll see how it plays out. For now, I do believe the venture capital market's going to be frothy, and AI is going to command a premium. But just remember, guys, like don't build for triviality, right? Try to aim for something that's going to be having a significant impact.
Until exit, which means usually 7 to 10 years in the VC world. Mm-hmm. At the very least, if that's what your goal is as an entrepreneur, like to exit the market and make a little bit of money, build for exit. Don't build for fads or ChatGPT.
They won't last. They'll get crushed by more substantive projects. So that being said,
you are bringing another point by mentioning those two startups from Ottawa. You mentioned that they've been around for about 10 years, and you still hold the term startup to represent them.
Yeah,
I want to talk about that terminology and in affection of the timing associated with a company existence.
When is it no longer a startup?
That's correct.
Because I have a controversial opinion about this.
Oh, let's hear it.
Yeah, so I remember in 2015, I argued to several people that Amazon was still a startup.
Right.
So obviously Amazon was founded in like 1994. So that's like 21 years. So obviously it's a little bit tongue in cheek that I'm saying it, but I was underlining how innovative Amazon is, despite their size. Usually companies get very, very big and they get top heavy. They stop innovating, and that's when they usually falter and maybe someone else comes in. But Amazon was built differently, with a different culture, a different mentality. They very much have a startup mentality, and I think that's captured in the day one mentality that Jeff Bezos brought to the management team. So they fundamentally believe that every day is day one, and that like you're founding.
But does that mean they're a startup, or they're just innovating like constantly? Like it just like the culture of innovation and the culture of startup, they do merge at a certain point. I don't know the actual like graphics of that, but the Amazons, the Googles of this world, they're cultures of innovation. They're not startups.
Here's where I'll cede to Amazon not being a startup. So they do have product lines. They have businesses that are fully mature businesses. Let's call it the e-commerce business is a mature business. It's a cash cow. Yeah. That being said, when they spin out in an AWS and they're in the process of testing it and building it and scaling it, you could say that these corporations are building like startups internally.
Right,
now,
so
does that make them a startup?
Entrepreneurship, that same term that I love so much.
Yeah, exactly. So I see that like they're not on the whole a startup, but they act like startups. They have a culture of innovation. They are not afraid to experiment and fail.
But they have tons of money to back it up.
That's right.
And
distribution.
No,
And
here's my
talent,
opinion though, and you can agree or disagree to it, but I think a company is a startup is a startup until it exits in any way. That means gets purchased by another company, IPOs, gets public, or
Okay, that's an interesting take.
yeah. So like that's usually the lifetime of a startup. And I have a personal story on that one. So not in terms of timing, but in terms of amount invested in a company. So in 2017, I was working for a startup in Silicon Valley myself in cybersecurity. That company today has IPO'd. Their name is Sentinel One. I can mention it. They're public now. They're worth billions of dollars. At the time, they went through a Series C. So Series C, still startup. They didn't get the amount they wanted, but they got about $76 million US from a Series C. Amount of investors kind of like came together and invested in them. By the way, quick fun fact, Ashton Kutcher was an investor in that company. You mentioned them at a McAfee cybersecurity
there are
conference.
more and more celebrities taking the role of venture capitalists. I think it's really awesome.
It's actually helping startups get known out there. But the whole reality is that here's my experience working for that startup, and why is it still a startup? So about 75 employees in California, about 200 in R&D in Israel. That was the cybersecurity startup. Again, they're very strong in that realm. And no HR department whatsoever. So I got hired on a whims. And when I got hired, they said, here's a company card. Go buy yourself a MacBook. You're starting Monday. So, I mean, to me, that is the basis of like what a startup is. Or where they put, or where a company puts their money at. No HR department
No
whatsoever.
process, no
nothing.
structure.
No structure.
They're still hustling. And that was at Series C.
That's Series C.
So they were making quite a few $1 million a year at this
Correct.
point.
And they were worth a few $1 million. Well,
of course.
Right? Yeah. Anyways, it's just my personal experience. And again, my belief is that when a startup IPOs or exits in any single way,
it's no longer a startup.
It's no longer a startup. So Amazon, and in that reality, Amazon is not a startup because they're on the public market.
See, okay. The only thing that I'll push back on there is whenever you sell equity in a company, technically you're exiting pieces of the company. When you go to the public markets, you're selling a chunk of the company to underwriters. And then after that, well, the shares are open, to be bought and sold on the free market. I guess it comes down to like, do you want to look at the financial context, or do you want to look at the innovation and kind of culture innovation context? So, to be continued. Maybe we'll come back. Yeah. Maybe we'll come back to this.
Well, let's here's a take on it. Let's invite entrepreneurs and startup founders themselves who exited to and ask them the question.
Yes,
what do they think?
What do you guys think? Think? Is Amazon a startup, or when did it stop being a startup? Despite the fact that it's innovating so much, I think that's an interesting question to ask. So let us know.
All right. Quick change of subjects. Starfest was about 2 weeks ago now. Starfest in Montreal. We went. Mike and I went. We participated. We met a lot of startups. We actually tested the winning startup product, which was called Ufrost. They made this they were able to freeze alcohol, innovation in itself. Because of the degree, and delicious.
I love that. Those are the best products where you're demoing it, and like every single person in the audience loves it, and it's tasty, and it's.
I mean, it's a free shot. Technically, it's a free freeze shot
on a hot day.
Yeah,
a cold shot is amazing, fruity,
sugary.
So they won.
They won $100,000.
$100K. Okay, and they were against a competitive field, I take it.
Oh yeah. Multiple startups pitched for that. Multiple. And it was packed. The event, and you were there. Startups on the bottom, startups on the top. I actually, one of the fun facts, what are they called? Forgot the VC that was in charge of it. They actually did elevator pitches. I mean, it was not the first time they did it, but it was the first time that I kind of went on an elevator with a startup.
Yeah, it was literally an elevator pitch.
Correct. 45 seconds to go up, and then 45 seconds to go down. And while you're going up, you're pitching, and I think there's a 30 seconds kind of you're jammed upstairs, and then while you're going down, you're answering questions.
Okay, awesome. No, that's
you
really
can
creative.
see the stress in those entrepreneurs. I was there. I was just like looking at it. I wish I could have filmed it, but it wasn't my place to do so. So
well, shout out to the organizers of Startup Fest. It was my second time. First time was in 2019. This one was a lot of fun. I love the venue. It's unfortunate that we had basically a tornado hit us and we had to hunker down for 2-3 hours, but the rest was a lot of fun.
Totally. Definitely, we're going back next year.
Yeah, we'll be there. Institut Innovation Gatineau will be at Startup Fest.
See you guys there.
What's next? Let's see. I did want to talk about Shopify's recent. They've been making waves with their new policy on meetings, on work meetings, and what they wanted to institute. I think it was earlier this year or last year, but they wanted to eliminate a lot of meetings. A meeting purge, if you will. There was a lot of backlash. There was a lot of debates that emerged.
They gave it a cost. So it cost between $700 or $600 US to $1,300 for each meeting.
$1,300
for each meeting
because of all the people, the staff that are getting paid. In those.
Yeah, exactly. They're part of those meetings, so they're really against meetings. And I know you've been against meetings for a while also, and we're a small organization ourselves. If anything, you've been using a tool. You can talk about that tool also. It's a fun tool if people don't know about it.
Well, let's start broad, and then we'll go into the specifics of how we manage meetings at IAG and what we learned over time. But this is interesting. I mean, you can definitely put a dollar cost on meetings, but don't forget, one thing that some people brought up in the comments is, yes, you can look at the cost only, and that gives you a certain amount of information, but what's the value derived from a meeting? A meeting is supposed to be a medium of exchange for managers and employees to exchange valuable information, to coordinate, to align themselves. And so there's obviously value being produced. So you'd have to countervail that cost with some kind of upside. Now, I agree with Shopify's overall policy that I think corporate culture is too meeting heavy and will make meetings out of anything, and the meetings will not be well run, and there won't be very conclusive actions to take at the end.
Here's a question, and last time we kind of reverted a question to another subject, but here's a question you should ask yourself. Is it a meeting or is it an email? And that, to me,
100%.
Is it a feature? Is it a platform? Is it a feature or is it a bug?
Yeah.
Right. So ask yourself that question before you set up a meeting with other colleagues or employees at your place of employment.
That's right.
Is this a meeting or is this an email?
Yeah, it could be an email, a well-worded email, which now you can use ChatGPT to help you out to draft something.
Or what other tool can you use?
Yeah. So what we use internally is Loom. Yeah. And shout out to Dave Morneau. I think he showed that to me a few years ago. Loom is basically a tool that allows you to record your screen and yourself, and so that you can do what with? You can explain something in a more dynamic way than writing up an email. So if I want to communicate something to you, Eric, that this morning I sent you a Loom.
Correct.
We were working on the front end of a product that we're going to be rolling out soon. And I had a comment on one of the buttons. Well, instead of writing up an email this button isn't super clear, we should, provide a bit of more context around it, I shared my screen, I recorded myself. I think it was not more than 45 seconds. And it's here's exactly what I'm thinking of doing. What do you think? And on Loom, you can receive comments. You can do all kinds of things. You can cut it. You can edit it.
You can rate the actual piece of information you're getting. The only one thing I'd say, and you'll talk about feedback you're getting on Loom in a few seconds, but so they have a feature called the transcript. So only, and that's the only thing I'd say, is it only transcribes everything said in English at this point.
Yeah.
And because we work in bilingual French, English,
it's bad for French. It doesn't work for French.
It doesn't work for French, and they're not the only one that don't work for French. Google Meet doesn't work for French transcribing.
Right. It'll come soon. It's just a matter of time.
Well, hopefully it'll come for Fringlish, which is like the mix of French and English words together. But
and it's not perfect in English, by the way. I always have to go through the transcript, and there's some words either I'm not articulating properly, but there's some words that it just butchers.
But here's my personal take on why I wouldn't like to receive looms all the time. I can search through my emails for a specific word you said or you wrote in an email to me to find some kind of a theme or a subject that I'm looking for in the past.
Yeah.
Loom.
Yeah.
If you send me a loom and it does in French.
Yeah. So for now, it's
search function is lost.
But by the way, the transcribe function is new. Like I didn't have that a month ago. So there's going to be a lot of speed of innovation on that front, and I think you'll be able to query even emails that I sent by Loom. That being said, not everyone is a fan of Loom.
Right.
In our organization, so Sylvain, one of the founders of IAG, he's built a successful construction company in the commercial sector. He's a bit more old school. Okay, we'll just put it that way. He told me on a number of occasions, so obviously I didn't listen, never send me one of those again.
Right.
Because it's just so different from the email experience. And I think he queries emails the same way as you. He looks for keywords and stuff.
Correct.
And up until now, there weren't transcriptions. So it's not for everyone. I also heard that from one of our coaches, Alex Rink.
It's not the way we're taught, to be honest. And Sylvain and myself, and again, I'm going to bring back the educational system here. We learn in school to read a certain way, and we even learn for business. And if you did your master's or your MBA, we learned to look for first words of a few sentences and just skip if you don't need to read the whole thing and just learn what the theme is going to be at.
So now you have to potentially listen to an entire video.
3 minutes, 5 minutes. Do I have that 3 minutes or 5 minutes, or can I just spend 2 seconds? Not 10 seconds reading.
That's why transcription changes the game. Correct. It actually made the product, multiple X better.
A bit better,
I think a lot better, because now it makes it viable to send by email. So all that to say, we internally, I've said to the team at IAG, send a loom if you can, get some, if you can communicate something quickly instead of even an email or even a meeting. And another thing that I like doing is I encourage us to have 15-minute meetings. So we have little Calendly links for 15-minute meetings instead of 30 minutes, instead of an hour, instead of, longer, because I like that they can act as a sort of forcing function. We sit down. We don't sit down. We don't have time to sit down. We say, what needs to be discussed? What are the key takeaways? And let's get it over with. And when you think of it, you can break a day into, dozens of 15-minute meetings and get a lot done. And so I like doing that as well.
That being said, I will always say yes to going for a walk meeting, and that could be 15, 30 minutes and just walk and talk and shoot ideas.
Changes the environment. They're always productive.
Good for your health. Steve Jobs used to do them a lot.
Totally.
So
it's super important. So we have our daily walk meeting. And the other hack is just kill meetings that are irrelevant. And I don't know if we do this enough, but if there's a meeting on the agenda that doesn't serve a purpose or is not clear, then you should kill it. Right. Because Shopify did, it's probably $1,000 in cost between everyone there, and it's a waste of time. So all that to say, it's better to execute than be in meetings. And if you can coordinate between people in the team using new tools like that and new approaches to meetings, like 15-minute meetings, then I think you can do just fine as an organization.
Great. Next.
Do we have?
We have the famous, or infamous at this point, Twitter rebrand for the letter X, or the sign that looks like a letter X. Apparently, it's not a letter X. I'm reading tons about this right now. Everyone's talking about it.
You did a post this week, and you criticized Elon Musk's decision to rebrand without a trademark. Yeah. So what happened exactly?
So, from my understanding, and this is not from my own writing, TechCrunch, we follow TechCrunch. I read TechCrunch on a daily or weekly basis. They published the fact that So Elon Musk just goes on whims, and sometimes actually I'm annoyed by this kind of like decision making that is not factual, it's not data based. So he just goes on whims and says, hey, let's just rebrand the whole company to X. So on one side, you have the Twitter trademark that was there, that was owned by Twitter or not owned by Twitter, that gets owned by everyone in the world because he just abandons it. And then on the other side, you have the X trademark that's being already owned by people. And he took over the Twitter username @X and @XAI, which were already owned by users, just said, you know what?
He took it over?
Yeah, he took it over.
He forced it?
He forced it. And not a democracy.
He didn't pay?
No. Oh, dude.
He's acting like a bit of a dictator.
A dictator. Not a bit.
Okay.
Not a bit. But not only that, I wanted to bring back the fact that this brought the image of him 25 years ago when he started like merging with PayPal in his first company. He had X.com.
Yeah.
And you can see him kind of pointing out the fact that PayPal and X.com are becoming one. And I'm thinking like, wait a second, is this just like it's just going a regression. Going back to the subject I brought with my babies here, like a regression, like the fact that what is it that you know? Like as an entrepreneur, you're a serial entrepreneur. You've had success in the past doing certain things, and you think you master these things. Yet social media, new venture for you. You bought it for a crazy amount of money, and you're thinking like, I don't master what I thought I could master. Twitter was its show.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say bad words here.
It was a weird chain of events, but it was entertaining to watch.
Totally.
And I was an investor during that period, so I'm glad the sale happened.
Same here, by the way. Personally, I had some shares and I made some money here, but not very little amount. But just going back, so the entrepreneur himself, he's going back in time here, like rebranding the whole thing to X.
I'll take an opposite stance to that. I don't see it as a regression. However, his methods are crude and, he has to check that. But he's had this vision since day one, since before PayPal merger, X.com. And it was supposed to be like a all-inclusive financial institution, like super advanced. Unfortunately, when the merger with with PayPal happened, it became just a product. The first application was PayPal, which is like a payment, a payment app. So, but he's been very clear since he bought Twitter that he's been wanting to transform it into his original vision of X.com. And now it's taken on a new life because of the AI revolution. He wanted to add, AI to the mix. So Elon is like this, we can't argue, this tremendous visionary who now has the means to actually realize his ideas, and he has the trust from a certain set of very talented engineers to actually make it happen, because it's not him that's making these products go to market and all that. He's very much a salesman, very much a good marketer, and I would say a strategist, but I think he has the ability to make X.ai and the new X, which it used to be Twitter, something incredible. I really do. He's got, let's just like list off some of the assets that they've got that they can tie together, okay? They have a satellite network that essentially is like internet infrastructure out in space.
Right.
He has a social media company, formerly Twitter. He has an AI, so he's got Tesla, and in Tesla, he's got just a ton of innovation going on, but not least of which is self-driving cars. And they want to make autonomous robots with the same AI. So now he's got like actually the AI chops to make something happen.
Quick parallel on this, and we have a startup that just joined. By the way, you'll meet them. They're working on electromagnetic motors, hopefully for cars, but they're working on smaller scale right now.
Fantastic. See, I don't even know the startups that are coming in. It's amazing. It's going
cool
well
startups,
right now.
Very cool startups, very cool ideas in Gatineau, by the way. But the reason I'm mentioning that is that I didn't know that, but he said Tesla, their business model is based on the data that is attached to a driver buying one of their cars, not the actual car. They're not making as much money as you think by selling the car, but the data they're capturing and they're selling to tons of companies left and right, including the fact that those cars are connected to the internet all the time. that's where the money's at. It's a Google
Yeah.
of the
I think,
car world.
to be fair, and we should probably put this up on the screen
Right.
if we can, but most of Tesla's revenue comes from car sales, and
Right.
they're quite profitable the way that they run their manufacturing. But you're right. In the long term, what this is going to become is an autonomous driving business, and the data is going to be king. And they're out front of the competition. Like they're outpacing the competition both in innovation and in the scale of data that they've collected and the amount of sensors they have on the road, right? Like millions of miles, millions of kilometers
Right.
driven. Coming back to my original point, Elon's got this like empire of tech companies in many domains that are complementary to each other. And so if someone's going to be able to pull off, first of all, rebranding's the least of his worries, as choppy as it is. He's got all the assets at his disposal and the talent to like actually make this happen. So I think what he wants to create is like a WeChat, the Chinese,
Right.
Chinese all in one app. So social media, financial institution.
Yeah, that's what he said he wants to do.
It'll probably connect up with Tesla somehow.
Right.
A kind of Amazon Prime, if you will, that
Right.
connects all these services. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does that. And kudos to him, insofar as he doesn't crush people along the way. He does it in a fair, in a humanitarian way. I think that's important.
Wait, what? I think we're not talking about the same Elon here, man. Because he fired so many people in
That's what I'm saying.
ethical way.
He needs to do it with grace. You know what I mean? Like he has the power now, so he needs to do it with grace and lead by example and all these things. And it's easy when you can do whatever you want. Unfortunately, human nature comes out.
Right.
So he needs to check that. But he can also move humanity forward on so many vectors. And I think that's really important that we don't forget. So he needs to find the balance.
Right. And we're not forgetting that. I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people are following him so much. Medias are like attached to his bottom.
Both
nice.
for like on the positive and negative side. He's become like a political figure.
Exactly. Or almost like a god, or like, and that's to be debatable, but like those companies, those tech companies are like little cults in themselves. And he's a cult leader.
Yeah, he's a cult leader. And someone, I read a book recently that called him a techno god.
Techno
right?
god, there you go.
Like for the tech religion. So we're in new territory here. We've never seen these figures emerge in the past. I mean, they took different forms, but their scope and reach and impact is unprecedented. And we're living in the most interesting time in history. I could say that with confidence. There's more happening in a year than happened in decades, and in other periods of history in thousands of years, literally.
Right.
And we get to live that, and we get to be in an institution.
Correct.
Right? We work in a space that touches that at upstream.
Right.
Being with the founders that have these bright ideas, that have these ambitions of changing the world. We get to work with them.
And being the leader, or being the leader of a cult, and like negative aside, the terminology here is not a bad thing. Actually, replace cult by community. And there you go. You got the innovation community that's behind him, following him every footstep of the way. Yeah. And that's what we're doing here. We're also creating an innovation ecosystem or community in Gatineau.
Absolutely.
That's what we're doing here. And if you think about marketing in the last few years, companies that have emerged and that have created the best communities around their brands, Nike, Lululemon. I'm thinking about all these companies. Like they created a
cult following.
Absolutely.
It's not a bad word. I think it's been tied to like the Charles Manson, if that's the one, drinking the Kool-Aid and stuff like that. But no, I mean, what is a cult? I'm gonna pull this from like my 0 to 1 book that I read so many times, but it's a number of people that share the same views, right? They have a shared culture. That's the base of the word culture. And if you direct that in productive ways, I think building a startup is one of the most productive things you can do to the world.
Right.
So if you can build a strong culture around your startup, around the change that you want to bring.
Culture.
That's right.
Culture.
No, but that's you missed it. I just said that.
Right.
Yeah. If you succeed in building that, like we're trying to build here in Gatineau, right, around the innovation ecosystem, you can do amazing things. So I think it all comes back to I watched Oppenheimer last week. Okay,
Right.
And the big debate, this whole movie's around this brilliant physicist who created the atomic bomb, and then he felt very guilty afterwards. And it's all about like, yes, you created the atomic bomb, but you also you unlocked the power of the atom for applications like nuclear energy, which could give cheap, abundant energy to everyone if it's done safely. But it can also be used as a bomb to destroy cities. And so it's kind of like, humans, these are tools. Humans are the ones who wield the tools, and we have to be responsible. So coming back to Elon Musk, he's got these powerful tools. Twitter may as well be a nuclear bomb.
By the way,
it may as well be.
And based on your comment about watching Oppenheimer, last week, I would argue that Barbie is a cult in itself.
100%.
The followers of that specific doll we're followers, like from the 50s or 60s that came through.
Came out early.
And the movie destroyed, by the way, Barbie destroyed Oppenheimer by doubling its amount.
But it's not surprising. Like I said, Barbie, I mean, was in everyone's homes in North America for like decades. And Oppenheimer was probably relegated to like small niche scientific communities, right? So I knew about Oppenheimer before, but not everyone knows about Barbie. So it's not surprising. That being said, the movie's amazing. Go watch Oppenheimer. I have to go see Barbie now, I guess.
Right. So you can comment on it.
Barbenheimer,
which is what people call it because they came out on the same weekend.
Some people did like Barbie, then Oppenheimer.
Or the opposite.
But dude, Oppenheimer's so long, I can't imagine doing two movies back to back. Like you'd have to like take a nap and maybe like a Red Bull in between.
Yeah. Tough for the dad life here. Like I don't even know how to sit down in front of TV for like an hour and a half.
You've got two startups at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Just focus on that. So were we finished on the subject of Twitter? We kind of went around a little bit, but the trademark aspect, that's an interesting one.
Right.
You brought this up. Your post on social media was more about the fact that he failed to secure the trademark on X, X.ai or
X.com or whatever, the X brand.
You'd think that he still has X.com, but the X brand, let's say, and so what are the results of that?
Well, the results is that everyone's going to be suing him soon enough. Like if he uses, not necessarily on the logo itself, but on anything that relates to X. So that's why people are arguing online that it is not X. It resembles an X, but it is a shape shift like an X.
Oh my God.
It is not an X. It's
well, I guess that's
you could argue, thing. Right?
It's I'm looking at it right now. It's I mean, you look at it as an X, but you're right. It could be something else. Two lines that intersect.
2 lines,
one of them's a parallelogram.
Right, exactly.
But anyways,
So related to what we tell our startups and any startup that might be listening to this podcast at this point, or entrepreneurs, is that think about the trademark from the very beginning. What our partner Stratford IP tells our startups all the time, and that's a message that got ingrained in my brain, is that if you choose a name, whether it's French or English, whatever it is, if you choose a logo, just make sure you researched it before you kind of build your whole mantra, brand, company culture around it, because someone else may own it.
Yeah.
And then you have to change the whole thing.
So here's my slightly nuanced take on this. Everything you said is right. I think it's a risk that you have to try to mitigate. So you have to be aware of what's being done out there.
Right.
Unfortunately, though, when you're building a startup, you don't know if it's going to be big at the very beginning. And let's both agree that there are far more pressing things often that you have to take care of before trademarking. For example, if you don't have sales and you don't have a product and you don't have any of this, then those are what you're focusing on.
Correct.
So take this with a grain of salt. You have to understand sort of the startup critical path and like what are those 7 elements that you need to get down before you consider securing a trademark.
Right.
But then you do have to think about it more seriously because
there
weird
are
things
other
can happen.
famous examples of non-startups that I followed, and again, Apple's a famous one when they released the iPhone.com, and the naming and the URL wasn't owned by Apple. Even when they announced it, they had to pay.
I'm sure they had the money for it.
Yeah, but they had the money for it. So that's where your reasoning makes total sense. Like if you have the money for it, doesn't matter what you want. You just pay the bill.
Yeah. At the end of the day, every startup is unique, and you've got to look at it on a case-by-case basis. You got to weigh the risks in your particular industry, your particular use of the trademark, the brand, versus your other priorities. I think that's the message that I'd pass to founders: is look at your scenario and do the pros and cons, right?
If we interject this, and that could be the last subject of today, into Web3, blockchain, technology, trademarks. In the future, I'm just trying to think, how would that function? Like someone owns, like a smart contract. Someone owns a brand. Would it not be apparent, like right away? I mean,
so that's one of the uses that people see for blockchain technology is like decentralized proof of ownership.
Right.
And ownership can be trademark, it can be IP, it can be money, right? Proof of reserves. I'm not an expert on this, so I don't want to like pronounce myself too much. I would love to bring, someone who does know a lot about this.
Northern Block startup?
They could be good, but also I was thinking Bianca with the Zero X Society. She's a lawyer and she's thought about this a lot. But if from my understanding, when the world shifts more towards like a decentralized world, proof of ownership will be secured on the blockchain. Now, how that's initially decided, like, is it because I'm the first? Like, you can do ordinals on the Bitcoin blockchain now. So an ordinal is an NFT on Bitcoin, secured by the strongest computing network in the world. So I could essentially put X.
Right.
But then, is Elon going to dispute that? Right? Like, I just don't. It's not clear the use case yet for business applications for me.
Okay.
Just for me.
Okay.
That being said, what it is really interesting for, this is a cool one. In China, slightly very oppressive regime by some standards, certain people were being oppressed and they were being suppressed by especially the media from getting their message out. So what did they do? They turned around and they put their message on the Bitcoin blockchain in the form of ordinals, which made it immutable, immortal, unchangeable, all of these things. That's an interesting thing. People are putting religious texts, people are putting their wills on the blockchain, because that becomes an immutable ledger that you can show as proof of like, this is what I said, and no one can change that. So even a political entity as powerful as the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, I think in the last episode I said PPC, right. They cannot change that no matter how much they try. And that is, to me, just such a fundamental shift in power from institutions to individuals. And I think that's one of the beauties of Web3, and in particular, I'll say Bitcoin. I'm a strong believer in Bitcoin, and it's the power of its blockchain. Right, and its network security. So that's what I'll say on that. But I don't want to go too far into like how people might protect their rights on it. I think there will be innovations that come down the pipe, in layer 2 and layer 3 solutions on top of Bitcoin in particular, where you have a little bit more, logic added there, like in the form of smart contracts, but it's not there yet.
What we can talk about is where we're at currently in Quebec or in Ontario, but in Quebec on the understanding of blockchain technology, and through that I will bring some of the information I got from one of our startups, Northern Block, who is actively pursuing like a blockchain technology for different projects that they have sold.
Digital identity.
So that's my whole point here, is that blockchain in itself is not understood fully by companies, governments out there, and even yourself today. You mentioned you don't understand everything about it. So in the way that they're pitching it and the way that they're explaining it is digital identity. That's how they kind of portray themselves in.
Well, it's an application, right? Blockchain, look at it as TCP/IP for the internet.
Right.
It's a protocol.
Right.
It's a technology underlying, and that doesn't really matter, right? That's what we kind of tell our startups. Those engineering focused founders that are like, look at this beautiful tech that I made. And it's like, yeah, but it serves no purpose to the market.
Right.
And so it's an art project, right, as far as I'm concerned. That being said, if it has an application, then it becomes interesting, it becomes valuable, and it will be monetized. So in the case of Northern Block, they're coming up with solutions for digital identity.
Right.
How do you validate your identity online? We're in a more and more digitized world. And, right now, for a lot of our identity issuance, we rely on institutions. In Canada, we have, the Canadian government to issue our passport, or,
provincial governments for driver's license.
For driver's license. And
banks for banking information.
That's right. And let's be honest here. Yeah. Those processes are so outdated. It's embarrassing to even, having to go wait in line for like 2 hours to then maybe get an audience and then you forgot a piece of paper.
And then maybe get something sent to your home 6 weeks later.
It's completely ridiculous. I'm insulted. I'm insulted when I have to go through this process. Moving proof of identity to like the digital realm is just obvious, glaringly. Right. Now we're trying to solve that. And among the technologies that can help achieve it is blockchain.
Right.
So Northern Block, our startup that we're helping, is coming up with some interesting solutions there. Correct. That could change the way that we validate our identity, in society, and that could be transformative. And I really like this niche of, I'll put them in a broader category of like gov tech in a way, like where they're improving that interface, that delivery of services.
They're not fully leveraging blockchain for the decentralized aspect of it, because there's still the way that they pitched it is that they still have to pitch it to the government that there is a governing agency on top of delivering that digital identity to whoever is requesting it on time. And so because of that, it is not the individual that is in charge of its own identity. It is, say, the province that delivers
the identity issuer, which kind of makes sense.
Right.
I think the rest can be abstracted away. Like as long as the mechanism is decentralized, transparent, etc., and to see how they're going to fully implement that. But these technologies make me excited because everyone
they move the needle.
Every citizen in a country, maybe save for what's that one in Europe that's so advanced they've got like essentially moved everything to the cloud. In the Balkans. Anyways, we desperately need this, right? To just have a better user experience. This is not something that we talk about when we talk about being a citizen of a country, but like a better user experience as a citizen, to get more for what our taxes buy. So I'm excited for this. And I think IAG is going to be, moving into this space gradually over the next few years. It's a tremendous opportunity, and there's a lot of innovation going on.
Right. And in that sense, quick shout out to this weekend. So tomorrow we're going to the beach with the Web3 community that you're building, Mike.
Yeah, that we're building.
We're building.
Yeah, so Web3 Aught that we launched 3 months ago.
Right.
This is going to be our third event, and we're calling it the Blockchain Beach Barbecue. So we're getting together.
BBQ.
Yeah, BBQ. We're going to go to Mooney's Bay on the Ottawa side, get a bunch of Web3 nuts together. And we're going to play games, do some trivia. We're going to, most of all, connect and have good times with other Web3 people. But this is the kind of thing that we want to do because it's a nascent industry, and there's so much happening. So we want to create some structure there.
I'm pumped for the games because I came up with some of the concepts there, and I think they're pretty creative and fun.
What is, like, just share some of them.
So, like I said, I'm pumped. The game that I created was Pump the Crypto Balloon.
so I'm excited to see that. We're going to get it on video, but yeah, it's going to be, and I don't want to give it away too much there, but another one is decentralized volleyball.
Correct. Decentralized volleyball. I mean, you can imagine the rules there, or you can show up and then you can play with us. There's another one there.
Web3 heads up.
Web3 heads up.
Flip cup. So it's going to be a good time. Excited to see you guys there. And I think for that, we can wrap it up today. We're just over 45 minutes.
Correct.
Eric, always great chatting with you.
Same.
Good to share this with the ecosystem. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time for an episode of Startup Talks.